So in this particular conference call, we're going to be doing the last of four interviews. We've had interviews really for the past month or so with various agents who are very successful in the final expense business. And the last interview we're doing today is with Wade Lewis out of Bowling Green, Kentucky. Let me tell you a little bit about Wade. Wade has been working with me probably between, I think it's been close to two and a half years now. And he works in the western part of Kentucky. Wade comes from a pharmaceutical sales background, quite a technical background, and has had pretty good success right from the beginning selling final expense. And what I'd like to do today is basically do the same thing I've been doing, just getting an overall perspective on who Wade is, how he does this business, and what he does to stay successful and continue to be successful after two and a half years of the business. So, Wade, I'm going to go ahead and take you off of mute in just a second. Hold on. And, Wade, can you hear me?
I got you, David.
Perfect. Wade is here. So great. Wade, thank you so much for joining on today's conference call.
Thank you for having me, David. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Well, that sounded like one of those guests on the news programs. Thank you for having me on your show.
That's right. So I've been listening to too many Avatar leads. Sounds like a robot here. So,
opportunity.
Yeah. So let's kind of start from the top, Wade. Kind of tell us. It's always interesting to hear where the backgrounds are of the actual agents that wind up in final expense. I'd like to hear a little bit about your professional background and kind of what brought you into the final expense business to begin with.
Sure. Yeah, you had mentioned the pharmaceutical sales, and which is absolutely correct. However, actually before that, I was in insurance. I went insurance to pharmaceuticals to back to insurance. So
yeah.
Yeah, it was just not a lot of people do that because when I say pharmaceutical sales, I'm not talking about what we used to call the glorified UPS men, the ones that would like take the little bag to the doctor's office and the samples and stuff. What I did was a critical care drug that was used in the cardiac cath lab. So we were in the hospitals during that procedure as an anticoagulant. So it was a big time pharmaceutical type of position, and I was in insurance before that. I'm in insurance now, so I get the question a lot of how did that happen and kind of what went on there. And the answer is that I was a purchasing manager for an aerospace company in North Carolina, and just a good friend of mine, as you meet friends through churches, schools, other places, we got to know. He was doing some insurance and financial planning and things like that, and I was doing my 8 to 5 or 9 to 5 kind of thing in purchasing. He was working when he wanted to, and they had a lot bigger house than we did. So I was like, hey, kind of tell me what you're doing. He said, well, it's insurance. It's commission now. Don't be afraid, but you can make more money. So I literally just went and got my insurance license and quit my job as a purchasing manager and started in that field, and did okay. But I started out with a captive agency, and I won't name the company because they're actually a very good company. It's just I was captive, and so
sure.
I was life insurance, Medicare supplement, annuities, long-term care, just all those kind of products. And of course, when you're captive, if someone asks you about a supplement, you show them that company supplement. If they ask you about life insurance, you show them that company's life insurance. And if they don't qualify, they don't qualify. So although I did fine, I did well. I did more than what I was doing at in the purchasing realm. I was restricted. So when another friend of mine came along with the opportunity for the pharmaceutical sales, I did the math. It was kind of kindergarten math, and I made that career change, and it was good. That industry, after a while, even in we always say, you only have so much potential, and that was kind of that situation. Is you would have certain targets that you had to hit, and anything you were on a salary plus commission or bonuses, really they'd call it. After you met that target, anything above that, you get a nice bonus. And for the first couple of years, I kept growing my hospitals, growing my doctors, growing my business, and then, of course, once you hit that target, they'd raise it again 6 months later. They'd raise it again 6 months later. And then towards the end, I had penetrated my territory and was basically, all my hospitals, doctors, they were using our drug. I was great. I got some awards at that company. But they had raised my target levels to where I was basically just making my salary, didn't really have the opportunity to do much other business. And so basically the ceiling that I didn't think would be a ceiling, came true. So I went back into the insurance industry, and I started with some Medicare supplement stuff, and which was great for a while. And then they changed the pay structure on that part of it, and just due to, basically out of necessity, I started looking around for, more opportunity in the insurance field, and that's when I found you and Final Expense. And this has been my truly only one real, truly, uncapped, earning potential. Even when the other ones were in commissions and sales, this one truly has been the first one that's untapped. So got into the Final Expense, went through your program, and just kind of did what I always do. I went to the best and tugged on his coattail and said, how did you do this? And I wasn't trying to reinvent the wheel. I just did what you said, and it's been great ever since. So that's kind of my background and my story.
Great. So what exactly, because, you kind of an interesting background. A lot of the guys that we've interviewed so far, Michael, Wade, and Dennis, Dennis, and Caesar, they had very little insurance-related background, whereas you, obviously, with your captive background, you had a little taste of everything. What about Final Expense attracted you in that particular direction? Why did you choose that versus any other particular line?
A couple of things. First of all, it's it's very simplified. I mean, I've had my Series 6 and 63 license, and I've done the securities markets and like I said, annuities and long-term care, and I've done a lot of different things. But the simplicity of it, it is truly really what drew me to that. I mean, you don't have to. It's not like I used to do long-term care, and I would go to doctors' offices because they hadn't received the physician's report yet, and I'd pay the $25 just to get it done so they could issue that policy, or sophisticated life policies where they had to go and draw blood and stuff, and the clients wouldn't set the appointment. I'd go back out and say, look, we got to get this done. And in the securities field, you'd get 17 calls the first time the market dipped a little bit, and the list goes on. And I at the end of the day, I just kind of base my income and career choices and things based on return on investment, but I base that on my time. And when I started looking at this Final Expense, it was like, it's extremely simple, no underwriting, basically the one product in a nutshell, no blood and urine stuff, and no calls when the market dips, just basically going out and truly helping people. And probably the first time that I really got that call that, that their husband had passed away and what should they do next, that's kind of what hooked me. So I said, I can do something that's very simplified, it's very easy to do, it makes me a lot of money and truly helps people. I just kind of did check, and said, I'm done. This is what I want to do.
Right. So one thing that most agents starting off, and even experienced agents, need to hear again as well, is we all want to replicate what the top agents do in any particular business, and final expense as well. Brian Tracy always says is that success leaves clues. And if you only just duplicate what the top people do, and if you follow and have the discipline to duplicate it, you can many times replicate their success. So my question is, along those lines, what do you think has aided in your success? If you can kind of give me the top three things and then go into detail that have aided your success in being successful in the final expense business. Your top three reasons.
Yeah, I haven't been posed that question before, but I need to answer that for myself. So I guess we'll just do that live right here.
Yeah, kind of like a gut feel, Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a good question, and I think it's a couple of things. Is number one, and I'm not actually going to put these in order because I may reverse them later. So I'll name
that's fine. That's fine.
That strike my heart. I'll put it that way.
Sure.
One is hard work. Although this is a simple business, it is a lot like work. And you can't make the kind of money that we make just sitting around. And if that was true, everybody would do it, and everybody would be making this type of money. But just hard work, absolutely, in every situation is going to be, part of it. Number two is, I care about the folks that I see. And I read a book one time that said, when you meet somebody for the first time, it was actually a Lou Holtz book. He was the coach for Notre Dame, and he was talking about his success and what he did in life. And he said, when you meet somebody for the first time, there's three questions that they're going to ask you really subconsciously, not out loud, but subconsciously in their mind, whether you're trying to recruit somebody, make a deal with a CEO, sell a final expense policy, whatever it may be. And that is, can I trust you? Which is fairly obvious. Are you competent? In other words, do you really know what you're talking about? Are you the expert here? And number three is, do you care about me? And so when I see my folks, I kind of remind myself of those that I know. And once I read that, I questioned them at first. I'm like, I don't know that everybody asks that. So when I started meeting new people, I paid attention to what I was looking at and what I was looking for, and I was like, good grief, I'm asking the same questions about this person in front of me. Can I trust you, really? And are you competent? Do you know what you're talking about? And do you really care about me? And I found it to be true. So, when I go and see my folks, I ask those three questions of myself before I go in, and I'm telling you, it resonates. It resonates with folks. And so that has absolutely contributed to my success because, can I trust you and do you care about me? Two of those three means that sometimes you walk out of a house without doing anything because it was the right thing for them. But that same character that you have to do that makes you a lot of money and a lot of other houses. And then thirdly, probably just over the years, I've been able to be around folks like you and other mentors and things like that I have gleaned, learned, put into practice, whatever you want to call it, some sales tactics that, are truly above and beyond the norm of being able to close and being able to overcome objections and being able to, connect with the people. People buy from who they like and people buy from who they trust. And if you don't have the ability to do that, it doesn't matter if you have the greatest product in the world. A lot of people think that people make decisions based on math. If your premium is lower than the premium they're paying, then they'll just take yours. And sometimes that's true, but most of the time decisions are made internally. It's a gut feeling, everybody calls it. Well, we don't have feelings in our guts, so what are they talking about? It's a intermind thing that they somehow, some way get to the point that they trust you. And I've learned to harness that and figure out what that is. And that's, if I was going to number them, that would probably be number one.
Right. So top three there, no necessary order. The hard work, having a passion for helping people certainly is the case. Because that kind of passion gets you through the deadbeats that we all have to deal with. And then the third one being following, and in so many words, following a system, I think I could say, of success or just duplicating it. Which, it's interesting. There's no, what Wade's talked about, if I may get on my soapbox, there's no magical technical expertise with really anything that Wade has said. Simply put, it's having the drive and the desire to help and succeed, and bolstered on top of that by having the humility as well to follow the system as it's laid out at the top. Basically what Wade said is essentially what I described earlier, the idea of success leaving clues. And, Wade picked up on those clues immediately, and instead of trying to recreate the system, he just rolled along with the same wheel that's always worked. Wade, you there?
Yes, sir. I agree. I was waiting for you. Yes, sir. Absolutely. Well said.
Cool. So let's move on here. Another thing I always like to kind of highlight too is having agents kind of tell me what their best week has been in the field, where everything has gone right, and it kind of gives everybody a bit of excitement to think what's possible if again you just adhere to the system and follow through. So Wade, if you could kind of take us back to your most memorable week and detail the process as to how much production you did and what it took really on a daily basis to achieve that level of production.
Okay. My best week it was $8,700 in annualized production, which is obviously really good. I do right at $20,000 a month. So if you can do almost $9,000 in 1 week, that means that was a pretty good week. So, and that's certainly not the norm. I wish it was, but it's certainly not the norm. But it was $8,700 in annualized commission, and the only thing I did maybe a little bit different that week was I was didn't have as good a week the week before, and I get a little more lazy on door knocks and drive-bys and things like that. And of course, everybody's driven by the income that you need to make, the nuts you have to hit, and things like that. And I, like most people, have spoiled my wife with all this indoor plumbing and electricity and stuff, and so you got to make sure everything stays in place. But so I did a few more door knocks and actually made some sales on that, but that didn't make that. That wasn't what set the record. It was more, to be honest with you, it was more about the law of averages, which I teach my agents as well. Is if you go at this program and in this industry, in this career, and you start judging things by day, like had a good day, had a bad day, well, you're either going to be on some heavy-duty antidepressants, or you're going to be looking for some sharp objects, or you just can't do that. It's just, I'm telling you, I'm good at what I do, and I've plugged into your system, which has made me a lot of money. But there are days that I make zero. So if you do that, you're in for a long haul. If you do it by the week, I believe you're in just about the same situation. I've had great weeks, and I've had not so great weeks. So I don't even go by the week. If you press me, I could even say that I don't put a whole lot of stock in a month. I watch that a little bit. The only time I would worry about what I do in the system that I have and that you've taught me and what we do is if I had a 2 or 3 month stretch where for whatever reason, the law of averages didn't catch up, then I would start investigating that there's something wrong here, and I may need to make a change in what I do, or talk to you or something like that. But I know I'm a little off topic, but the reason it's not about the $8,700 weeks. It's about not looking at any one day, 1 week, or maybe even 1 month. It's just do what you do, follow the system, and the law of averages over time. I've made a whole lot of money. In fact, it was funny. When I was in commissions sales, when I first got in that first commission job, my son, as they are when they're young, they want to talk about money and what they want to do when they get older. And he said, Dad, how much money do you make every day? And I'm like, well, I don't know, buddy. I just, I'm on commission. I don't get the same amount. Well, kind of how much? I'm like, well, it's different, buddy. It's not the same. Well, guess. And I'm like, okay. So I took a month and kind of what I made, and I divided by, 30 or 20. And I said, it's about this much, X amount. He said, whoa. So his grandmother was asking what he wants to do when he grows up. He said, I want to do what Dad does because he makes this much a day. And she goes, really? He goes, yeah. And she said, well, do you know that sometimes, some days, he doesn't make anything? And he got a really sad look on his face. He looked at me and said, Dad, is that true? Some days you don't make anything? I said, well, no, buddy. Some days I don't. He goes, oh, well, all right, well, I want to be a firefighter then, so it just,
that's so funny.
In the child's mind, it is what it is, but the same thing works for us. You just can't do it like that. But I've been successful, and over time, it averages out to be a wonderful, blessed living, and I'm glad I got into it.
Wade, I think the supposed quote-unquote tangent you went off on, which regarding really your mental health as an agent, is way more important than my question of asking what your top week was. And it's so important to moderate your expectations with what the system will do for you, because the truth is that the battle that's waged out there, our competition isn't the other guy who's selling stuff like we are. It's us. It's what goes on between our head and the mental anguish that we create for ourselves. And it's extremely helpful, having you, with your success, explain that you experience all the same scenarios that beginning agents or struggling agents experience, meaning the frustrations with, deadbeats or zip days where you don't do anything as far as production goes. But the interesting thing with any sort of system, and this is kind of an extension of your point, which was made so eloquently, is that a system produces results on a statistical basis. But in order to realize the statistical output or the outcomes, you've got to have enough activities or events within the system in order to realize a steady expectation. For example, if you take 10 appointments or 10 events in a system, you can look at that and it could be a completely random outcome. Meaning, if you follow the system and you follow the approach and everything you've done was done correctly, there's enough probability in it that the results may be bad. They may be great. But the point is that you may do everything right and still have a bad week, which goes to your point why we shouldn't even look at our results on a daily basis. Most people don't do 10 appointments a day. I can tell you, for myself, for someone who does do 10 appointments a day, you can have random results that don't make any sense and will drive you nuts if you let it, enter your mind too deeply. Whereas what you should do as an agent, like you said, really, it's superior to take a month-to-month or even a quarter-to-quarter look at production. Because ultimately, you're looking at, instead of 10 or 15, at-bats swinging the bat, you're looking at 60 to 80 or even 180 to 200 if we look on a quarterly basis. And what you find is, is that your outcomes are much more predictable and much more in line with what the system should do over the longer period of time that you measure the success or failure. And like you said, too, you know, a system isn't broken if the results are poor for a set of, you know, small volume like 10 activity or 10 appointments, let's say. You know, the system isn't necessarily, you really don't know if it's broken until you do at least a month. But, you know, even good agents have bad months. Even good agents have bad quarters. But the point is there's not really a point of analysis to get hyper concerned with the system until you've done that kind of activity. Now, of course, this is all easier said than done. I'll be the first to admit it took me probably 3 years before my wife could look at me at the end of the night and say, I couldn't tell if I had a great day where I wrote $2 or $3 grand in premium, or I just totally batted 0 for 0 or 0 for 10. I didn't sell anything. You know, it took that long and probably thousands of appointments before, you know, I could control my emotions enough that I knew experientially that this stuff happens. It doesn't mean I'm a bad agent, and it certainly doesn't mean the system is broke. It's just, you know, I played the odds and they didn't turn out in my favor. And the likelihood of the inverse being true eventually, where I walk home with $5 grand in the day, is going to happen if I just play the odds long enough and survive the system. So,
it's I log everything in kind of a CRM type system, and you could go back. It's almost like the stock market. You could take a little snapshot of certain days or this 10-day period, and if you multiplied that times the rest of the year, I wouldn't make much at all. If you took a 2-day snapshot and multiplied that times the rest of the year, I'd be a multimillionaire, and none of that matters. What matters is the average at the end, and I'm good with that now.
Yeah, and it's one of those things. It's some lessons can be taught, others have to be learned, and my hope is, if any part of this conversation and interview we've had, it's this last portion, really sticks with you guys listening, because it really is the key to long-term success. I forget who it was, if it was Al Granum or one of the legendary life insurance producers, said basically, you know, the key to success selling life insurance is just surviving. And there's a lot of truth in that, because in many cases you do struggle for a couple of years. And once you build a book of business, you'll find that you guys will have referrals calling you, even if you don't even actively pursue them. And I've never been good at asking for referrals because I never do it. But like right now, I've got one, I'm looking at my email right now. I had somebody call in and who has a policy with me and is requesting more information on adding more. So stuff like that starts to happen after a couple of years if you just stick with it and follow the system. And you find that things get easier and you become more successful as well. So, Wade, last question to kind of round out the interview, which, again, I truly appreciate your time and energy in doing it, is if we think of the new agent that's coming aboard, or the newer agent, and starting off, and they want to start off on the right foot. They want to make sure that getting into this business, they do as much possible correctly from the beginning in order to optimize their chances for success. What would you tell these agents that they need to do right from the get-go to give them the best chances of success in the final expense business?
Sure. Number one is to don't be afraid to call, ask questions, whoever your upline is, whether it's David or myself or whoever else. You know, again, I've never broken new ground. I've never invented the next, cancer-saving drug, but I have been very successful just because I was smart enough to base it on people who have already been successful. And if you're out in the field and you want the best start, then I would say communicate early on with a lot of questions. And I can tell you the agents that we have that are under us, the most successful ones are the ones that have called me the most with the most questions. And you would think, well, you know, the ones that don't call, that means they're smarter. They've got it going on. They know what they're doing, so you're not getting their calls, and they're the most successful. And that's just, for whatever reason, has not worked out to be true. The ones that are the most successful are the ones I hear from the most. I just ran
That's so true. True for me.
I just ran into this buzzsaw, and I got my rear end handed to me, and I had never had that question before, and I was like, that's okay. I remember the first time I had that question, and it's, you know, it's a tough one, but here's the answer, and here's what we go. Or, you know, hey, I tried this and it wasn't very successful. How do you do it? I'm like, well, I do it a little bit differently, and this is why. You know, I did what you did, and what I was finding was about the same result that you were having. But what I learned from somebody else, I don't take any, you know, credit for it, but what I learned through David or somebody else is this is a better way to do that. And they're like, oh, and then I'll get a phone call, you know, later, hey, it worked. And, you know, so I would just tell new agents, to swallow the pride and communicate and ask questions. And if whatever doesn't work, if you say I don't care what it is, I can't get to my appointments, right? My GPS is wrong. What GPS do you use? I don't care what it is. I mean, whatever problem or whatever thing is keeping you from, whether it's a close, whether it's when I walk in, everybody's looking at me funny, you know, I ask, what kind of haircut you have? I don't know, but do something to fix whatever the issue or problem or wall that you're facing is. Just make that phone call. A lot of us have been doing this a long time, been very successful. There's really nothing we haven't seen. And I used to tell folks, my agents, when I was training them, it's like, I don't know if I can remember everything to say right. What if I tell them something wrong? And I always told them this, you can't say anything wrong enough that I can't fix. So, you know, do the best you can, and if something goes south, we'll work through it together. So I would just say absolutely communicate with your upline or a mentor or somebody. I cannot stress that enough. Secondly would just be, you know, good old-fashioned hard work, and that's just that's twice I've mentioned it now, but I can't get around it. Nobody's going to make the kind of money we make without some kind of hard work. Well, I mean, I guess there's some .comers or something, I don't know. But anyway, you really do have to see the people. You got to knock on the door. You got to stay late. You got to make the phone call when you're tired on that follow-up. And I've been, you know, ready to go home. I've got money in the bank. It's not necessary, but I'll make that other call, and they can only see me tonight, and it's 45 minutes in the other direction, and I go and I make my $1,200, and then I go home. And some people will do that, and some people won't. But I would highly recommend that you do that. And thirdly, would probably be sincere. Don't get commission breath, we call it. You know, where you go in there sounding desperate. There's so many people that truly need this, that we can truly help, that we're literally giving them exactly what they need. And you know, I tell my my clients, even when I'm in the home, my job is not to talk you into buying something that I have. I believe in my heart that everybody needs final expense life insurance, take care of their final expenses and not be a burden on their family. My job is not to talk somebody into buying what I have. My job is to find the people that believe what I believe and then get them that product the cheapest that they can in the state of Kentucky. And if that's not where they are, that's fine. But, you know, I'm not there to talk them into anything. So if you're going to be sincere like that, if that person doesn't believe what you believe and you can't help them, don't get commission breath. Don't try and do something that's not right for them. You move on because the next person will. I guarantee you. And when I say the next person, we're talking about those law of averages. I don't mean the very next appointment. I mean over that week, over that month, you're going to find the ones that you can truly help and you can make a good living by helping them.
That's exactly right. Absolutely. Well, cool, Wade. Thank you again for this great interview. At this point, I'd like to invite people who have any particular questions to go ahead and press 5-star. Again, if you've never done this before, if it's your first time, if you press 5-star on your phone, that raises your hand on my screen here where I can see you asking a question. And feel free to ask a question, anything if you have a question for Wade in particular, or if you have a question in general about anything final expense, you're welcome to press 5-star to raise your hand. And what I'm going to do now is I always give a approximate 10 to 15 second countdown starting now. So to wait for anybody that has any particular questions at all that they'd like to have answered in a public forum, and maybe myself or Wade can help you out. Again, 5-star is the way that you ask a question. So I'm going to give it just a few more seconds here. Give it 1 second. And don't see anybody in particular, so at this point I want to, first of all, thank you, Wade, for your time and effort and the great interview that you gave today, and thank you for all of you who have attended the conference call today. We will be right back at it next week, Friday, with another conference call, and most likely back to the training schedule with a particular topic. If you're interested as well to attend my Facebook live stream session, that's starting at 12 o'clock Eastern, so in about 49 minutes exactly. And we're going to be talking about rapport and introduction, and maybe even a little bit about the head game, as I've been inspired in our talk today with Wade. So thank you again, Wade. Thanks, everybody, so much for attending, and we will see you shortly. Y'all take care. Have a good one.
Thank you, David.
Bye, Wade.